Hey, we're live. And you know what's funny about when I say that? When I go back and I look at the recording of us, it's like there's 2 seconds where before I see it live where I see me. So, it's a good thing I'm not picking my nose or something beforehand. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. First show of 2024. That's kind of exciting.
Oh yeah, okay.
And I think this year's a leap year too, so we get an extra day in February. So that's also exciting whenever we get a leap year. I think it is, anyways. I'm assuming everyone can hear me okay. Oh, there's Andrea.
I can hear you.
You can hear me. Yep. Great. Some interesting things. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday was a great trading day. Oh my gosh. Made some good bank yesterday. That was nice. Christmas kind of came late, I guess. We had some okay days here and there in late December, but leading up to this ETF thing, but not as good as yesterday. So hopefully we'll get some more of that.
It's been actually December for me on my vol selling account was a long month because I was sort of fighting and clawing away against increasing vols when I was short vol. Yeah. So it was just a constant month of management, but actually it came good in the end. Paid about 7%.
Yeah. No, it's always tough when you're a seller and you get a big trend. We have the Zigdao Deribit Bitcoin options fund that we trade publicly. And we started that at the beginning of November, and it's just one big move up, moved up 30%. But we managed to survive it and doing pretty good, and it's catching up now. Something interesting. So just before the call, I was scanning through some news, and I saw now that Bitcoin is now the 9th most valuable asset in the world as it celebrates its 15th birthday. Because literally yesterday, I think, was its birthday. I think that's when it first started. That big dump was on the same day as its birthday. So that's kind of interesting. Really, market cap about 900 billion. Very, very interesting.
It was about 1.2 trillion at its peak, wasn't it?
Yeah, somewhere up when it was up near 60. Yep. Yeah, but very good stuff. Very interesting times for sure. So let's get started without further ado. We still got a few more people coming in, but we'll get started. As always, put your questions into the Q&A section, and let's get rocking and rolling. Okay, so today we'll look at some charts. I got some trades on. Actually, one just closed out this morning, but I still got it on the chart, so I'll show you that. Kind of my strategy behind that. And today's topic is 300 to 1,000% gains before the news. And yes, I was taking those types of gains. I didn't realize them all. Some of them I did, some of them I didn't. And actually, I had much larger gains than that yesterday because that was my news from basically over the earlier in the week. But I've got a screenshot here. Oh my God, work, you computer. Let's see, a 700% to 1,300% to 1,600%. Gain. So that was all good stuff. And I'll show you the strategy, what I was doing behind that to lock in those gains. So it's lots of good stuff. But as always, here, let me go up here and I'm going to put in our chat. If anybody does not have a Deribit account, I can't imagine anybody on this call not having a Deribit account or some type of trading account. But if you do not have one, sign up with Deribit, use the link in the chat and save 10% on fees and do us a solid. I was always a little plug here. Hey, we're the Rogue Traders, www.roguetrader.academy. And we basically just teach people options. We do live trading. We do mentoring. We do live streams. We do all kinds of great stuff, weekly calls. And we try and really hold people's hands and, make a real community. So if you want to up your trading game or join us, hang out with us, chat with us, see what trades we're doing, ask us questions because we've got an interactive Telegram channel where we post our trades. You can ask us questions in there. Check it out. Silver and above gets access to all that good stuff. And if you just want to watch us live trade that Zigdao Deribit fund that I was talking about earlier, it's a Rogue Trader Zigdao fund, but we use the Deribit platform to access for all our trading. So if you want to check that out, check us out on Patreon as we live stream at least once a day, except on weekends, unless there's a compelling reason to do so. And the OnlyFans should be coming soon. We're having some continued difficulties setting that up. I'm shocked that it's taking us that long. But anyways, that's our little plug. So let's go back. Actually, what I'm going to do here, Richard, is I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen right away, if you don't mind.
Okay, yeah.
I'm going to bring up.
This is very much your show today.
Ah, yes.
You had all the amazing gains.
All the scalping gains. Yeah, I just needed to bring up the right window. Here it is. I found it. Everyone can just relax. I found it. All right. I had to scroll way up here. This is a 4-hour chart. You can see it's a 4-hour chart. I had to scroll way up to make this the range. But, okay. We had this big move up, right? And this is back on January 1st, basically. First and second week. We kicked off the new year with a big move up. I mean, how big was that from here to there? It was like 7.5%, right? So pretty good stuff. Well, I did sell some naked short calls when it was up, touched close to $46,000. I sold those naked calls. I don't remember what I sold them for off the top of my head. I think it was 0.0125 of a Bitcoin. And I actually closed that trade out this morning because they'd lost 50% of the value. Thanks to this big dump, which was very good timing. And sometimes you just get lucky. That's the way she goes. But I felt we weren't going to make that move yet. So this position is actually closed. But this morning, actually not this morning, literally just before this call, I put the orders in this morning, but I just got filled just before this call. I did put on a short call spread. And I sold, that's why I got the red here, the 52,000 Jan 12s, and I bought the 60,000s as protection. I wasn't really even going to buy the 60,000, but in this case, I put a bid in and I got filled. So I'm quite happy to do so to earn a little bit of theta. And, if anybody's been kind of paying attention to what I've been talking about the last, month or so, I wanted to be relatively flat going into this, and I am. I'm using on this one discretionary account, I'm using 1% margin, like nothing, literally nothing. I'm always long, though. I'm always long the market on calls and puts right now. I'm always long, and I'll talk about that a little bit more when I get into these gains because nobody knows what's going to happen. It's very interesting when we look at this chart. Remember this pink band here, this band of resistance, this band of things are going to happen there. It's like when you're a pilot, right? And you see some clouds, you don't fly into the clouds. Why? Because there's something happening there. There's some action going on there. You kind of want to avoid them, right? In general, same thing. We've got this kind of action. We've got old orders, open interest. We've got all these things happening in these areas. And I drew this way back in the spring. Isn't it funny that we had this move up? It stopped at the very top, came back down to the bottom of the range. It busted above. And Richard was asking me the other day, and some people were saying, well, what do you think from here? And I'm like, well, you know what? This is going to turn into support. If it holds, it'll be support. And we can expect it to bounce off here and go up. Otherwise, it's just a wick through and it's going to plunge back down. Where do you plunge back down? Right to the bottom of the range. And interestingly, right to the bottom of this trend line. Exactly to that trend line. Isn't that interesting? Another crazy coincidence. Oh boy. So, what do I expect from here? Well, I can't really say anything because it's a bit of a wild card because we're in this news environment. Everybody's on, they're up. Everybody's, nobody knows what's going to happen. But we've got scenarios. We're either going to get this ETF approval and it's going to go up. Okay. We're going to get the ETF approval and the price is already built in. It's just going to, maybe have some violent moves, but really not do much. Or it's going to not get approved, which I think is probably now just as likely as being approved, and we're going to plummet. And I would expect us to be somewhere down in the 30s to its sweet. Let's say nothing happens. Let's say they kick the can down the road. Oh, we're going to delay the decision until February. Or who knows? Who knows what could happen, right? Well, I'd expect it to kind of hit this trend line and kind of keep kind of going up. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. So we never know what's going to happen, but these tools will give us a little bit of an indication of what we could expect. And more so for when we're selling options and buying options is where we want to buy and sell them as a general area, because we know there's probably going to be some hangups in certain areas. Works like a charm. So I'm quite happy with this position right now. Now, this short call spread, if this thing, over the next few days is just farting around here, and these lose half their value, I'll take them out. I'll just cash those things in, just like I did with these 50,000 short calls. But let's not forget, the rate up here, 58,000, is the all-time high. And Richard, I know you mentioned that this morning. Do we really think this thing is going to blast through the all-time high to 100K all of a sudden? Boy, that would take a lot of money.
It's a big ask, right?
Anything can happen.
I get it that all the crypto whales are on board with Bitcoin going up, but the general public right now couldn't give two shits, right?
Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at. So what am I looking to do? Well, if we're going to move up into this pink zone, I wouldn't be surprised if it moved to the top of the pink zone, and then I'll be selling calls up above it. If we come down and we bust through, look up below. Yeah, we could get hung up at 38, the previous support. I wouldn't be surprised. But if it's real bad news, I wouldn't be surprised if it punched down through, even if it came back up. But to get a punch down through, and sweet baby Jesus, I'll be selling puts like you wouldn't believe, down in the high 20s or whatever down there, probably as spreads, because I think that'll be a great opportunity. And I'll also be looking to buy long calls on the cheap. If this thing plummets down, I'll be the only one in the market, and I'll be buying calls because I'll expect a nice bounce. Same if it goes really up high. If it pushes deep into the 50s for some crazy reason, I'll be buying those puts at 50, 52, 48, whatever. Hell yeah. We had some interesting news, a news article that we posted in our membership group. Richard, I don't know if you remember off the top of your head, talking about that the ETF won't be approved. I don't remember who it was.
Yeah, this is some KT research repeated some opinions that they'd read that the quality of the applications doesn't meet the test, which is interesting given that they're coming from big investment firms. But I think, I didn't spend too much time reading it. I was too busy fighting the market at the time. But it was something about. I guess the SEC has a problem with what Bitcoin, how you store Bitcoin, and what it is, and how you preserve the value, and so on. And I have some sympathy with that because I'm in the middle of, as I mentioned, I think before, I'm in the middle of actually creating a crypto fund at the moment, and it's quite difficult to describe to regulators how you keep people's assets safe. To somebody who's a cryptophile, it's easy, right? Oh yeah, it's just your keys, your money. But actually, if it's a fund, who holds the keys and how, and what can you trust infrastructure, and you've got to prove it all. And I can imagine it's a long and arduous journey for a regulator, even with the best one in the world. And actually, and this particular regulator isn't particularly enamored with the idea anyway. Mm-hmm. So it can easily be a long journey with lots of ups and downs, which is of course what we all want.
Yeah. And just so everyone knows, that article did show up in the Deribit news feed. So everyone had access to it. I just happened to see it and share it during the chaos. So before we jump into questions and a little deeper dive maybe on what we expect, how did I make those 300 to 1,600% gains? Well, what I've been doing since mid to late December, as I was winding the book down, so I was removing all the risk from the books, and because we didn't know what wildcard, we didn't want to get caught heavy short anything in any big move. So we thought, hey, the responsible thing to do here is to, even though it's rising vol, we love rising vol, is to just kind of flatten things out and be available to jump on opportunities as they happen. And that's been working out so far so good. Knock on wood. However, we didn't want to just be necessarily sitting there flat. If we expect volatility, if we expect, vol could go from, 50 to 75, in 2 minutes, well, you want to be there to take advantage of that. And the only way you can do is be long options. So every single day I was picking up 2 to 3 day options. So these near-term expiries at very, very cheap prices. I was putting lower bids in. Sometimes I'd cross the spread if I was a bit disbalanced on a certain day. But I made sure that every day I had some coverage long with calls and puts. Some days I had more than others. Some days I could have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Bitcoins worth. Other days I could only get 0.2. It just depends. And as we got closer and closer to January, those prices got more and more expensive, which made it a little bit harder because it sucks when you look at your theta's negative and it's slowly chewing away your account. But we knew this is going to happen, and we knew it would only be for a short period of time. So in this case, did I make a little bit of money on the way up? Yeah, I did. It wasn't anything to write home about, but I was happy about it. But I did sell these 50,000s. I felt pretty confident on that. And I told you I took those out at 50% profit, or they lost their 50% of their value. But where I really made the money was on that drop yesterday. And the funny thing is that morning I had bought some calls. I think there were 52,000 calls. They were really, really cheap. And I'd bought, some 43s, 41s, maybe 40 and a half, something like that. I had a whole range of these long puts. Well, obviously, when this thing dropped down, they made me a boatload of money. Now, some of them only had 0.2, 0.3. Some had 1 or 2 Bitcoin worth, and it made a real difference. My account did hit a new high at that time. The only thing is, though, is as it was coming down here, I was a little bit late. I didn't get the best prices, but for the most part, I was the only one in the market for a lot of that time. So even though the mark price was saying I was up 800%, I was still putting my order out higher and getting filled on some of those orders because there's nobody left in the market. And that's one thing about Deribit you have to understand. When a big move goes, everyone disappears, right? Because nobody knows what's going to happen. I'm happy to be in there. I'm happy to buy if I'm looking to pick things up on the cheap, and I'll go. I want that at a bargain basement price. And if I'm going to sell it, you're going to pay me some premium. But what I did here is I always scale out, right? So I started to take some profit as it was down here, but I didn't know. I mean, maybe this thing was going to go below 40. It didn't go to 39. Who knows, right, at the time. So I didn't want to give it up. So I scaled out. So did I realize profit on all those positions at 1,500% or 1,000%? No, but some of it. Some of them, if I only had 0.1 at a certain strike, when I sold it, fine, done. But other ones, if I had half a Bitcoin or a Bitcoin or 3 Bitcoins, I was parsing it out as it was going down. And then the rest of them would have expired. Well, it depends where they would have expired with the strike price. But if they're out of the money, they would expire worthlessly. But, because if I would have given up all those puts here and then it would have plunged down to 36 or something, I would have been kicking myself all the way home. It doesn't happen too often, but you want to keep some in reserve, even if it's only 10 or 20%, but you never go broke taking a profit. So that was how I made those great gains. Now, am I still doing that now? Yes, I am. But it's a little bit tougher as we've gotten closer to January. Now we're in January. We're getting closer to that, Jan 10 date. Everyone expects the news to come out because obviously we've got elevated premiums. However, instead of paying 0.2 or 0.3, 0.0002 or 0.003 or whatever, now maybe you've got to pay 9 or 15 for that same thing. But if it hits, I can still expect to triple, quadruple my money if we get rising vol. So if I'm buying something at 55 vol, or some news comes out, why can't it be at 95? It can, and it can make me a lot of money. One interesting thing I'll say about that is this morning here, when I said I bought those calls and I puts, and I said I bought some 52,000 puts, at this very bottom here, those 52,000 calls that I bought up here, when the market plummeted, I sold at a 33% profit. Isn't that crazy? And that's one thing you can do with options is it was clearly, it's going the opposite direction. What the hell? But vol was rising. Vol shot through the roof, and I sold those 52,000 calls at 33. I'll take those out. I'll take the whole thing out because what, it's going to go down to here and keep going up? Of course not. But I was pretty happy to do so. So that's the fun part of options. Ways you can make money even if the position is clearly not the right position, just because of the effects of IV. So that's Bitcoin. That's what I got going on. Other than this, I don't have anything happening right now, except every day I'm buying little bits of this wing protections. Usually, if I can get it 5 to 8% away, great. Lately, it's pretty tough. It's pretty expensive to do that. But even 10, 15% away, I'm very happy to pick some of that up just in case, because we might have a lot of volatility coming our way before the 10th, I'm sure we do, and those can pay you quite handsomely for the price you pay for it. Obviously, when you're buying stuff at 0.0003, if you only got 0.1 of it, it's not going to make you a lot of money. It's an $8 trade makes you $40. Well, okay, it's better than nothing. But if you've got 2, 3, 4, 5 Bitcoins worth, and you've got these staggered out everywhere, you can start to make some serious cake. One last thing to look at just before I stop sharing the charts here is ETH. ETH has just been a dog, not doing too much, just kind of sitting there. It took a big drop when Bitcoin dropped. It recovered, but it's just sort of copying Bitcoin in a way, but not really pressing new highs. But the one thing I will mention is I saw an article today that said that in the month of December, there was more ETH was bought than Bitcoin. I can't remember the actual term because it got the ETH upgrade is coming up on January 17th. Sorry, we've got people coming in here. The testing. It's called the Cancun update, right? And I don't know the technicals of how all this, it's supposed to make transaction fees less expensive on the network and a whole bunch of stuff. But it seemed like there was a lot of interest going into ETH, even though the price wasn't really reflecting it in the month of December. I think that's about it. I think that's all I wanted to mention with the charts.
Yeah, I was just going to add, I got lucky as well on the calls, like you did. 47,500 calls I bought on for 4th of January. I bought them on the 2nd of January, just as speculative cover. Just because I had a feeling, actually, bizarrely, bought 4 Bitcoins of the 47,500 calls, paid 8 bits for them. And I was able to sell them 2 days later for 64 bits.
Nice. And actually, we were on our live stream yesterday morning, and we thought, hey, let's sell. We sold some 50,000 calls, Jan 12s. We sold some 51s as well, and then boom, the market went straight down. It was really nice timing on all the accounts. So that was quite delicious. And you know what? You get these days. If every day could be like yesterday would be. Rolling in dough. So I hope everyone else made some money. And I know a lot of people are just sitting on their hands and not doing anything. There's nothing wrong with that. If you don't know what's going to happen, there's nothing wrong with being flat and just waiting for opportunities to jump on. It's better than being underwater.
Shane, I at the moment the devol's at 65%, which I think is a bit of a sweet spot, right? I think we get extremes of 130% vol now and again, like for a day when there's a Terra Luna or something happens. Yeah. But that's rare, and 100 vol is pretty rare. Anything more than a few days at 100 vol is rare, right? So at 65 vol, you can kind of take the view that, more or less 100 is the cap. Obviously, buy some cover, but and there's every opportunity for vol to either stay here or to drop. So actually, selling vol now kind of feels good. But also the swings, the nice price swings you get when vol is around here, gives you lots of scalping opportunities. It's a really nice market. I mean, real contrast to autumn when the markets implied vols were down at sort of 30, 35, and you just couldn't make any money whatever you did, right?
Yeah.
So it's quite nice.
Yeah, and it's funny because here we are, January 4th, and we sort of came to the decision where we're like, you know what? I think we should be selling, and we purposely came into the month, flattish. Mm-hmm. But the longer we sit here, the more we think that maybe this is it. Maybe this is, there could be some spikes, but really this might be the best time. We could be down at 40 something vol by the time we get to the end of January, and we should just be selling all the way down. So we felt okay, especially on the ZigDAO fund. Rogue Trader ZigDAO fund to go ahead and start selling a little bit more risk right now. We're doing it so carefully because we recognize there's probably still going to be some moves and some shenanigans, but we want to be protected on both sides of the market too, up and down. Before I forget, though, I did want to quickly publish a little poll, and the question is, especially after the news that came out yesterday or the day before, or the news that caused the market to drop, saying that they don't think it's going to get approved. The question is, will it get approved? Will this Bitcoin ETF actually get approved? Yes, no, or you think it's a crapshoot, 50-50? Who knows?
In what time frame, Shane?
Well, I guess I should just say that, this month or, by Jan 20, because, they could kick it down the road and say, hey, we're delaying our decision till March or whatever. But I'm talking about this month, this big, we've all been anticipating it for the last 6 weeks, right? So, yeah.
I was just going to say, I had the same feeling. So on my home save account, which is what I call it kind of home savings, I've been scaling into being short vol over the past actually couple of weeks, but now a little bit more aggressively, because I get, my feeling is that I'm protecting myself. Don't get me wrong. I'm buying more cover than I need and so on, but it kind of feels like a good time to make some money.
And it might be, you never know what the market's going to do. And if the thing is if this turns out to be regardless of the ETF decision, if this ends up being a non-event, and this is the highs we're going to see, on the vol, we're going to be kicking ourselves we didn't sell it. But at the same time, if we're in too heavy and the market goes nuts and 60 vol turns into 80 vol, it's painful, and you got to deal with it. So we want to make sure that we're kind of balancing it. But as soon as we get an idea of that direction, if we think it's time to sell risk, we'll pile on the risk.
The thing is, it's painful, but actually with vols this high, so for example, the 12th of Jan is the money vol is 75. Right? And if you were to, I'm short, for example, the 47,500 calls, trading at 78.5 vol for 9 days away, 8 days away, 7.5 days away. Yeah, if that goes, that it would take a 10% move in the market to put me in the money. I'm long the underlying anyway.
Yep.
And if we went up 10%, we're going to get a vol spike. But the vol is going to affect the 2 week much more than the 1 week. So I could roll those out, so $4,000 up, and I buy myself lots of time. Yeah, it doesn't feel dangerous anymore. When vols were down at 35, selling calls felt dangerous, but.
Yeah, and a good point you made. If we're long the underlying, well, that makes things a lot more bearable. And this morning on our Zigdal account, we sold some Jan 19 risk. I love the weeklies because it allows us to roll into the monthly, which is where all the open interest is. So if something goes wrong, we get to roll into a monthly versus having to go from a month to a month. I hate having to roll out 30 days or more. I almost always want to avoid that in the crypto options market. Other markets, not so bad. So that's where we're at. And
actually, just to add to that, at the moment, you could if you're selling 7th or 12th of Jan, so 12th of Jan, and it goes wrong, and you roll into 19th of Jan, you can actually, there's you don't even have to go to the next monthly, it goes to the next weekly.
Yeah.
And you can keep on doing that. And it falls like this, you can just keep on walking away from trouble. So, it feels pretty safe.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I think we're all pretty happy. We're all pretty happy with things right now. We've had, and I think we can expect more goodness to come. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add before we jump into a question or two.
No, I'm good.
Okay. We did have so far. Any questions? Because we're almost at the end of our time here. But Vladimir, I'm using the position builder. Okay, I've only used it a couple times from Deribit. And what I've noticed is that once really big moves happen, price of any options break the roof. Okay. So my question is next one: does it make sense to take losses at such times and roll positions in time, or is it better to wait for the storm to pass? Boy, that's probably the most common question there is.
There's a standard answer to this, isn't there? Which is you can think of, if you sell a call option and you get in the money, you can think of that either as an opportunity to roll a position and keep chasing the market up until you get your money, i.e. your money. Someone's hoovering outside. Or you can say, actually, this is a bet I made and I lost it. What's the next bet I want to make? And the question to ask yourself is, if you roll that position into another call or a strangle, etc., is that a position you'd actually want to hold today? And if you don't want to hold that position because you think it's going to keep on going up, or the market's going to whipsaw and kill you or whatever, then the answer is just to step back and wait, because that's this not rolling your position is the same as buying options. So the answer is roll it if the roll puts you in a position that you're comfortable with. And if not, time to step away and admit you were wrong and reevaluate your strategy, I think.
Yeah, and I think a good point is that when you roll, you're taking a loss in that position anyways. So you're locking in a loss, but then you just open a new position to make up for it and buy yourself more time. So it's just kind of, I think you've mentioned this before too, Richard, where you said sort of when we talk about rolling, a lot of people just, it's a mental trick for them. It's like, oh, it's no big deal. But really, you've locked in a loss. You've closed the position of a loss, and now you're opening a new one. But you're right. And a lot of times, it can be tough depending on the environment and where you did the roll. If you're in the money, it's a lot harder to find a nice price that you're comfortable with or an expiry. Then that's why we love sometimes rolling into 1x2s, sometimes rolling into strangles, sometimes rolling into these lopsided spreads, iron condors, so that you can feel a little bit better because, maybe it's like, the call price, you're like, oh, it's a little bit tight. Would I really want that right now? But when you take half that risk off and you put it on the other side, it's like, oh, you know what? I can live with that. Especially if you think we're going to do a big uptrend and you're worried, well, put half the risk on the downside. That's a lot easier to swallow. That's why options, give you options. And I think we can make ourselves a little bit more comfortable just by moving that risk out here and there. And
what we've also found is that if you think that we're kind of in a range, which we have been, then we have another book that we do. We actually sell 3-day strangles on, and we just roll those if they get in trouble and keep on rolling them, often even if they're in the money. And actually, when the market's mean reverting and in a range like it is today, that makes a lot of money. And the risk, of course, is that you burst out of the range. So you definitely got to cover that kind of trade. But that can pull in, I don't know, 20% a month quite easily. But that's absolutely dependent on you thinking that on a day-by-day basis we're going to get more or less min reversion. So you're comfortable. I think over the past, couple of weeks, we've been perfectly happy to be short the, say, 43,500 call, even if it gets at the money or in the money. So what? I mean, just roll it for the next day, picking up $300 a day. What's the big deal? Whether I do that over the weekend into next week, I'm not so sure. But
yeah. And when you do that strategy, you've got to be comfortable being put under pressure. And most days you're going to be under pressure, but you just got a system, and you just ride the system. And that there's going to be a few times every year guaranteed where you're going to get a 12% move, and you just got to deal with it. And you will get drawdowns.
Case in point, you sell today and at the money straddle expiring tomorrow morning, which is like 12 hours away. You're gonna net $1,000 in premium. So the market's got to move $1,000 for you to be wrong, right? I mean, you only got to roll that 5 days on the trot, and then now the market's got to move $5,000 to prove you wrong.
Yeah,
there's a lot of money there, right?
Yeah.
Cover it. If you do that, cover it, for God's sake.
Someone will pull up their gun. Well, Richard and Shane were doing it.
You know what? I mean, that trade pulls you in 240 basis points, and you can cover it with 10 basis points with super comfortable cover.
And that being said, the strategy of selling these 3-day strangles, you could do a strategy of selling 3-day iron condors, but of course that's going to reduce the amount of income you make, but it'll also make the drawdowns easier on you. But
I'm thinking, overnight 1x3 iron butterflies. Got to be a mega trade, right? Just put in the money until the market bursts out, and then it makes you 3x. Epic.
It's just so simple. All right, we're at the end of our time here. I'm going to end the poll, and I'm not surprised. 66% of people said that they feel that the Bitcoin ETF is going to get approved. And again, this is assuming it gets approved this month as per.
You should have done another poll, which is, and if yes, does it matter?
And does it matter? Yes, because we are of the opinion that it might not.
Yeah.
We think there's going to be some volatility, but we wouldn't be surprised if it ended up right back down to where it was.
I'm buying puts. I'm afraid of it falling off. Even if they say yes, I'm afraid of it for selling off.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what I talked about our strategy at the beginning there. We're always buying calls and puts. Every day we're buying that wing protection, no matter what. Now I think is the time to do it. And the thing about that is you could have done that all summer long, and you could have wasted a lot of money on something and destroyed your account. You knew it was going to end sometime, but nobody knows when. So it's tough to do. But in this environment, when we know this news is coming, you got to do it, or you don't got to do it. But if you want to make money off a move, that's what you got to do. You got to pony some money up if you want to get.
Actually, I was going to add that what we're doing on the Zigzag account is taking advantage of the skew. So we're actually selling risk reversals in January and February, and we're using the calls to more than pay for the puts. So we're getting downside protection. Sure, we've got upside risk, but it's very manageable. It's miles away, 10, 15 delta. And it feels like that's a good trade to me at the moment, anyway.
Yeah, and it's generally a lot easier to manage the calls if they get in trouble versus managing puts.
Yeah.
Because you're not getting the double whammy. Yeah, and for anyone who wants to follow that, of course, the live stream, check out our Patreon, Road Trader Academy.
What I will say about managing calls is that it's like a long, painful therapy, like acupuncture or something nasty like that. Whereas
talk therapy.
But managing puts that go wrong is like having your leg amputated. Right? It's over quickly, but it's painful.
Yeah, it sucks because you watch your account value go down because the price of Bitcoin's coming down, and that sucks. While you're also getting beaten up on options. Yeah, it's not a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's more fun to be long puts when the market goes down. Anyways, so what Cora says, don't follow the ETF news. Don't think it would affect much in price of Bitcoin. Right.
Yeah, I think we've seen a 35% increase, 100% increase across the year, 150. That's got to be. This is the most telegraphed event in human history, right?
Yeah. And that's also what we think there's a good chance we're going right back down in the 30s on the approval. So we never know. Who knows? But
I'm going to turn on cynic mode. If I was a miner or an ETF organizer, what would I be doing? I'd be buying up all the stock I could get cause the price to go up, then sell it all to punters, and then dump it all, and let them suffer.
And then buy it when it bottoms.
Buy it on the floor, and they're all screaming to get out of the ETFs. That's sorry, I'm cynical, but humans are humans.
Yeah, it's not like we haven't seen that in the markets before.
Right.
No, come on, that's like the oldest trick in the book, right? So, okay, I think we're going to wrap it up. If we have no more questions, first show of 2024. We think it's going to be a fantastic year, regardless of what the price of the underlying assets do. I think that we're going to have some good options action. The options market is finally eclipsing the spot market, so I think that the time to be trading crypto options is now, and we're really coming into it. And I think we're going to have lots of great opportunities throughout the year. So I'm very, very excited about the possibilities.
Yeah, I performance-wise, I did okay in November, made 33% profit, and then 7.5% in December. I'm kind of looking at the market conditions. I'm hoping to put out like 10% a month for the next 3 months. We'll see how it goes, but it should be nice, right?
Excellent. Okay, let's wrap it up. And thank you again.
In 3 episodes' time, how that went.
Yeah. Thanks again, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you again next week.